Hello friends, now let us discuss about our next chapter, which is a very special chapter, and if you see the name of the chapter also, it is mentioned as chapter 5a. Why is it so? Where you are talking about your chapter 4 and chapter 5. Chapter 4 which was dealing with your classification, that is your rate of tax, and chapter 5 which was dealing with your taxable person. Friends, if you remember, when you talk about your classification chapter, we have discussed that one of the rate of entry for GST could be 0. Your exempted entry is there. You are talking about your exempted goods or exempted services, for which you had section 11 of your CGST Act read along with section 6 of your IGST Act. Friends, we are only focusing on that entry where the rate of tax is 0%. Where the rate of tax is 0%. And friends, if you remember taxable person, we bifurcated that discussion into 3 parts. General category, forward charge mechanism. Special category 1, reverse charge mechanism, where we have 2 categories of reverse charge mechanism, section 9.3, section 9.4. And another special category where you are talking about electronic commerce operator paying GST for notified services, section 9.5. Friends, here we are going to discuss only about RCM. That too, our focus will be on section 9.3 RCM. If you remember section 9.3 RCM, we have discussed that. We are going to discuss that separately along with exemption entries. So all I wanted to tell is, from your chapter 4, we did not discuss something called as your exemption entries. We did not discuss something called as your exemption entries. From your chapter 5, we did not discuss your RCM under section 9.3. We did not discuss your RCM under section 9.3. Why we did not discuss that in chapter 4 and chapter 5 is that we wanted to discuss them together in a proper flow chart so that you are prepared for your exam questions. I'll repeat. Your chapter number 4 was nothing but your classification where we talk about the rate of tax, and we have discussed that the normal rate of tax are 0, 5, 12, 18, 28. One of the rate of tax is 0 where you are talking about exempt supply. And friends, we have discussed that exemptions are given by government under section 11 of your CGST Act read along with section 6 of your IGST Act. So our focus now, friends, is only on that exempt supply. Exempt supply. And friends, when you talk about your chapter 5, we have discussed about your taxable person. Right, normal category is supplier is going to pay GST to the government, that is forward charge mechanism. Special category 1 is recipient is going to pay GST to the government, right, reverse charge mechanism, where 2 categories of there for reverse charge mechanism, section 9.3, section 9.4. Section 9.4 was only for real estate sector that you discussed. Now our focus is only on section 9.3. Our focus is only on section 9.3 reverse charge mechanism. And friends, when we have the other category of taxable person was eco category, section 9.5. So we are not discussing about reverse charge mechanism, section 9.4. We are not discussing about eco 9.5. Our focus is only on section 9.3, section 9.3 reverse charge mechanism. And friends, both these aspects when we are discussing, we have to be very clear. We are discussing only for your services. We are talking about your exemption on services, as well as we are talking about your RCM under section 9.3 for services. Now you will tell, why not for goods? When you talk about exemption on goods, there are a lot of exemption on goods also, but they are not applicable for your exams. When you talk about section 9.3 category, right, section 9.3 category has got notified goods as well as notified services. RCM under section 9.3 for notified goods is not applicable for your exams. I'll repeat, there are exemptions for goods as well as services, but we are not discussing goods category because exemption on goods is not applicable for your exams. What are the list of goods on which exemption is not applicable for your exams? And friends, when you talk about your RCM under section 9.3, your RCM under section 9.3, obviously even under RCM under section 9.3, we have already discussed notified goods are there. Practically notified goods are there, but they are not applicable for your exam. So we are discussing about exemption only and only on services, and RCM under section 9.3 only and only on services. So our attention or our focus is only on exemption in relation to services and RCM in relation to services. Why? Exemption in relation to goods and RCM under section 9.3 in relation to goods is not applicable for your exams. Right. Now when you talk about exemption, as discussed, we have exemption on your goods as well as exemption on your services. We do have exemption on your goods, we do have exemption on your services also. So when you talk about exemption on your goods, your exemption on your goods, I've just given some example: unbranded atta, maida, besan, unpacked food grains, etc., etc. Are they applicable for your exams? They are not there for your exams. Not there for your exams. Are there a lot of exemptions when you talk about goods? Yes. But are they applicable for your exams? No. Are there a lot of exemption on services? Yes. There are a lot of exemption on services which are given under exemption notification 12/2017 CT rate, which are given under exemption notification. Your 12/2017 CT rate read along with 9/2017 IT rate. 12/2017 CT rate for intrastate supply read along with 9/2017 IT rate for interstate supply. What is 12/2017 CT rate? 12th notification in the year 2017 under Central Goods and Service Tax Act, CT, Central Tax, dealing with rate, therefore rate. Not general notification, it is rate notification. And what is 9/2017 IT rate? 9th notification released in the year 2017 under Integrated Goods and Service Tax Act, that is integrated tax. Again dealing with rate. So bracket, you have IT. So friends, when you talk about your exemption on goods, it is there but not for your exams. When you talk about exemption for services, which is also there for your exams, you are talking about two notifications, 12/2017 CT rate read along with 9/2017 IT rate. They are exactly the same, but for there are 8 special cases in your 9/2017 IT rate which deals only with interstate supply, which are not there in 12/2017 CT rate, because they are only talking about your interstate supply. So basically, when you are reading your 12/2017 CT rate, you are reading 9/2017 IT rate also, right? Out of about 100 entries there are a lot of entries in that exemption notification. You will find exactly same thing in both these notification. The only difference is in 9/2017 IT rate, interstate supply, integrated GST Act. There are 8 special cases which are there, which cannot be there under CT rate, 12/2017 CT rate, because those 8 cases are only interstate supply. Those 8 cases are only interstate supply. They are only and only interstate supply. So when you are talking about only and only interstate supply, you cannot have that entries. Basically, they are talking about exemptions on imports and exports. Certain exemption on imports and exports. Certain exemption on import of services and export of services. Not exactly export of services, export like services. If it is export, there is no need of exemption. So export like services. Export like services. Don't call it as export of services. Export like services. So rather, I will be very specific here also. Certain exemptions which are on import of services and export like services. They are not exactly export, because if at all an item is exported, if at all a service is exported, you have a payment option, pay output IGST, claim the refund of output IGST, you need not pay output IGST and claim the refund of unutilized input tax credit. This you will understand when we see your input tax credit chapter. So it's not export of services, like export like service. They are not exactly export, but they are very similar to export like services, which you will understand when we are going to discuss about that particular scenario, right? And in these cases, your supply is only interstate supply, therefore exemption will be given only in 9/2017 IT rate. You cannot find a corresponding entry in 12/2017 CT rate. Friends, what I want to tell you is, you need not read both these entries. Both these exemption notification, 12/2017 CT rate and 9/2017 IT rate are exactly the same. In 12/2017 CT rate, you will find intrastate supply, and in 9/2017 IT rate, you will find interstate supply. So the entries, exemption entries are all exactly the same. Whenever they do amendment in 12/2017 CT rate, corresponding amendment is always done in 9/2017 IT rate. The only difference is you have 8 special cases or 8 special exemption entries in 9/2017 IT rate, which you don't find in 12/2017 CT rate, because those entries deals only with exemptions on interstate supply, because those entries are dealing with exemptions which are only on interstate supply, and those entries are only talking about either import of services or export like services. And import of services and export like services, we have discussed that they are only interstate supply. They cannot be intrastate supply, therefore they are not found in your 12/2017 CT rate, right? Now friends, for simplicity purposes, we have divided this chapter into multiple points. Rather, before we take that services, you have to understand how we are going to discuss this chapter. There are a lot of entries in this chapter. how our discussion is going to be there. Our discussion for this chapter is going to be we will divide our discussion in this chapter into 3 parts. Right. Obviously, if you compare with your ICA material or any other text, you will find that number of pages are more. But don't worry about the number of pages. We have given in flowchart concept with lot of conceptual examples. So please don't see the number of pages. Till now, you have already understood that when you have gone through the earlier topics, number of pages is not relevant for our text, because entire text is given in flowchart format or pictorial presentation format. Right. So, and a lot of, if you go through the text, you'll also find that whenever a concept ends at a particular page, if at all balance half a page or more than half a page is there, we don't discuss the new concept in a already continued page. We discuss new concepts always in the new page. So please don't judge our discussion with number of pages. I want to tell you specifically, because in spite of telling this again and again, you'll always think that about the number of pages. Please don't. If at all your text is say about 500 pages for module 1, it is hardly, if at all I remove all those spaces and I remove all those flowcharts, it is not even 300 pages. Right. So please don't judge by the number of pages. Now we are going to discuss this into 3 parts. The first discussion is going to be about those industries which has got exemptions as well as RCM under section 9.5. Right, lot of entries are there where you have exemptions along with RCM entries. The second discussion is going to be about important exemptions, only exemptions which don't have RCM entries, only important exemptions. And balance exemptions, small exemptions, right? Balance exemptions, the only small thing that is given for self-study will be this balance exemptions, right? We'll be discussing all the exemptions, we'll be discussing, our first discussion will be only about all the exemptions along with your RCM entries, where you have exemption as well as RCM entries, where ICA clubs these points. So you will be discussing about exemptions along with RCM entries. We are going to discuss industry based, right? Industry based, service sector based. We will be naming particular industry. So there will be a lot of repetitions. You will find n number of repetitions. A particular entry may be related to 3 industries. It will be given in 3 places, repetition. So you will find lot of repetitions. Only once we discuss, we go through, you will understand lot of repetitions are there. Second discussion will be only about cases where there are only exemptions, no RCM entries, but we will be discussing only about exemptions. And the balance exemptions, once we complete the major portion, 70 to 75% of this topic, more than that rather, right? Small other exemption entries which are there in text, you have to go through yourself. Any queries you can always ask, right? Small entries are there. 2 reasons why those points are not touched. One reason that they are only for biadding purposes. They are first RCM along with exemptions we have already discussed. We'll be discussing that specifically. Your important exemptions will be discussing, lengthy and important exemptions will be discussing. All other exemptions will be small exemptions. Small exemptions. Right, point number 1. And point number 2, you have to biad that. There's no conceptual understanding that you have to biad that. Rather, you need not even biad that, you have to be familiar with that. So you have to go through once and twice. And we have a lot of conceptual examples even for the balance exemptions. Right. And third thing, they are not so important for exams. So I don't want to discuss this chapter in a very lengthy manner. So once we complete the 75% or more than that discussion of this particular chapter, you will find that balance exemption has got nothing. If you spend minimum 1.5 hours to 2 hours, you will be finding all these balance exemptions are very simple, because they are again given in form of flowchart, right? And lot of entries, even in that balance exemptions, we would have covered in the first 2 parts, because there are a lot of repetitions. So go through that particular third part where you are talking about your balance exemptions, right? When you talk about this balance exemption, I'll tell this particular statement. We have designed this chapter in such a way that we are very happy and proud that this chapter is categorized into beautiful flowcharts. So I would have been very happy even to discuss the other part, but the number of hours will be more, and so you'll feel that okay, this chapter is quite lengthy. No, this chapter is lengthy. You have to just bifurcate it into small parts and read that industry wise. You'll find it very simple. Don't jump to conclusions by seeing the length, right? So it is only on the simplicity what it is there. We have simplified to the maximum extent that is possible, right? So given an opportunity, I would be happy even to discuss that last portion. But I'm sure that once you complete that major portion, first and second, exemption and RCM and important exemptions, you'll find that okay, we understand the reasons, that they are only unimportant entries, only biating is there, no RCM concept, no important exemptions, and not so important. Therefore, you have to just give a glance. I'm not telling biat it, give a glance. Though these entries you have to remember it, but no biating is required. Please forget about biating. Give a glance. You should be familiar that yes, this is there in exemption, this is not there in exemption.